Before we get started, I want to mention that tonight we are using caption access to provide attendees with closed captions and video remote American Sign Language interpretation, or VRI. Now, this is a part of our effort to better serve our deaf and hard of hearing artists and the disability community at large. Tonight, our ASL interpreter is Paula Meyer. So you may see her in the corner of your screen there, an RID certified interpreter. If you have any questions about Fractured Atlas's accessibility work, feel free to contact us after the webinar. So before we jump in, I want to make sure that the slides are visible. And if you can see the slides and the captioning and interpreter, as well as hear me, please type yes in the chat box there before we get started. Wonderful. I'm seeing a lot of yes being typed, which is great. Again, if you want to move the interpreter, there is an option within the box there for you to minimize it, or you can move it to the side or anything like that if you're not going to be using it, but it is there for your use. All right, so just so you know, this webinar is going to be recorded with captioning. Don't feel pressured to take perfect notes, as a copy will be emailed to you within a couple of weeks of the presentation, so you may rewatch and catch anything that you might have missed. So welcome. So first, a little bit about us. Fractured Atlas is a nonprofit tech company that works with artists and arts organizations in all different disciplines across the country. We offer a variety of programs and services that help artists strengthen the business side of their practice. Our 4 core programs are fiscal sponsorship, a program that helps artists raise charitable donations for individuals, corporate sponsors, and grantors. Our insurance program helps artists minimize their own risk and liability. Artfully is a web-based software application that helps artists sell tickets, take donations, and track fans. And Space Finder is an online marketplace that helps artists find performance and rehearsal space. So through these programs, we work with more than 70,000 members, more than 4,000 fiscally sponsored projects, and we've raised more than $142 million since the program began. We've secured more than 17,000 insurance policies and served more than 1 million artists across the country. So welcome to tonight's webinar, where we'll discuss tips and tools for soliciting donations from individuals and cultivating long-lasting supporters. Now, we'll address the benefits of individual giving, how to prepare for an individual appeal with avenues you can use to reach out to donors, how to engage and attract donors, creating long-lasting relationships, and advantages of Fractured Atlas's services. Now, there will be a section at the end for questions. Feel free to type in the Q&A or chat box as we go along, but there will be a section at the end to answer all questions. If during the presentation there is a moment to stop and answer questions, I will, but otherwise we will get to all questions at the end. So before we get started, I want to say it's a pleasure to virtually meet you, and we're all glad you're taking steps to advance your sponsored project with us, or advance just any fundraising knowledge you might want. So who are we? The Fractured Atlas Programs team is a lean staff of 11, all artists as well, and we're here to assist you. So when you give us a call or shoot us an email, you could be working with any one of us at any given time, depending on the nature of your inquiry. So a little bit about myself. I am an artist as well. I do theater and as well as a budding film producer as well. So I have 2 sponsored projects with Fractured Atlas. So not only do I have experience on the admin side of Fractured Atlas, but I do have experience on the project side of Fractured Atlas. So hopefully I'll have some really unique insight for anyone who might be having specific questions about their work. Again, my name is Aisha Jordan. I am a program associate with Fractured Atlas. So let's get started. So as mentioned, in this section, we'll provide some of the facts of individual donations compared to other contributed revenue and the importance and benefits of individual giving. So we'll jump into it. When talking about individual donors, it's important to see why we work so hard to get individuals on board with our work. Here's a breakdown of the funds raised through Fractured Atlas Fiscal Sponsorship Program. Now, as you can see, more than 50% of the funding we received for the purposes of our fiscally sponsored projects comes from individual donors, while less than 40% comes from foundations and less than 10% from other sources. So historically, donations from individuals account for over 2/3 of all donations. Now, this trend is also prevalent in major cultural institutions in the US, and it shows us that we should rely on individuals to fund the majority of our budgets. So you might be thinking, but what about grants? Aren't they usually in larger sums, and aren't they more reliable because they come from institutions? While grants take about 1/3 of our income, you cannot really rely on them because they are very competitive and may not come through year after year. Statistically, grants are the most competitive type of support that exists, and the amount of funding available can fluctuate from year to year. The best way to create a sustainable funding model is to build a donor base made up of many individuals rather than a few grants that may or may not come through the following year, and it's unrestricted funds. Plus, many foundations consider individual donors to be the bread and butter of your work and want to see that you have a strong base when reviewing your proposals. So, before we can start soliciting donations, we first need to prepare our strategies, content, and materials. So you'll want to tell a compelling story so that your donors know what you're doing and why you're doing it. The best way to find out how to tell a compelling story is by asking the who, what, where, when, and hows of your work. So first, what is it? Be clear and concise about your artistic discipline. Is it dance, film, theater, performance art, etc.? This part can be tough for artists as the whole point of our work is not to be put in a box. But think of it as opening the box for your donor. They may not know the subtle nuances of the art form, but bring them in. Tell them what kind of box you work around. In addition, what problem does your work address or seek to provide action for? So after you've established what to do, be clear about what you do your work for and who you do your work with. Who are the key players? Who make up the community? Be specific on the audiences that will actually be impacted, and examples of past impact is key. So where does your work take place? Let your donors know where your activities will be conducted and exactly where you intend to make your impact, and what locations you are invested in exposing your work to. As you get to know your donors, you may find that some donors are very interested in funding projects in a specific region, and you can cater to this when soliciting. So when will your project take place? Let your donors know the timeline of the project and what phase of the work their funds will be aiding. This is also a chance to highlight the urgency and significance of giving now and not at a later portion of your project. So how do you create impact? What are the steps that you take in order to reach the goals you've set out and get the desired outcomes for your work? How does your process of creation, production, or execution hope to yield the impact needed? Sometimes this manifests as a rubric or a pedagogy or specific method used. Be clear and specific and concise to your donor because they may not know the intricacies of the certain method or style, so let them in on the secret. So why do you do this work? Detail the significance of the impact. This is very important in conveying the value of the work you do. Many people get scared of the word value because we tend to be pretty humble about our worth. And how do you put a value on art? So here's the chance to let your donor know the reason your work is so impactful and instill urgency and buy-in for the donor. Let them know by donating, they are making this impact as well. So first, know your constituents. Know your donors and their interests. Pay close attention to the type of audiences you attract and the followers who flock to your work. Be sure to know their habits and specifics of what parts of their work that they may like most. This gives you the beginning of how to engage them even further into your work. Now, we suggest administering surveys at your shows or an e-blast to gauge the impact of your work on your participants. So Fractured Atlas has a great service that helps you keep track of all this, and it's called Artfully. Artfully helps you sell tickets, receive donations for sponsored projects and 501c3s, and track all of this information. Now, we'll get into just how to utilize this service once we get down the basics of individual giving. So many people want that magic easy button to get a list of all donors who will give to you just because. And I'm sad to say this magic list does not exist. Like many large and small organizations, it takes hard work, perseverance, and networking. So we suggest start small with close friends and family. Now we know it's tough. We don't all have that rich auntie or wealthy best friend. But when you're building a community and a following, the $5, $10, $20 that a friend gives actually lays the foundation for your project's continued success. All right. So develop an advisory committee that can help you do all of these things. They can help you write thank you notes or make calls to donors. Have a group of people who can help and will allow you to keep connected with your donors and thank them for their generosity in a timely manner. Also, have an advisory board of people who might know specific things that you don't. Have connections to things that you might not have the specific connection to. This widens your scope and allows for more interest into your work. So in this next section, we're going to talk about how to reach out to donors. We'll go into the many avenues available to connecting with your constituents and building relationships. So first, letter writing can be a very effective first step in a fundraising plan for individuals. Letters should emphasize the who, what, where, when, and how of your work that we spoke about earlier. Be sure to do this in a condensed and concise way. Try not to use flowery language. You're looking to gain their support rather than fill them in with the metaphors and jargon of your work. Now, I like to use the peanut butter and jelly sandwich explanation technique. Imagine you're telling people how to make a PB&J sandwich who've never heard of it. Tell them where you get the peanut butter and the jelly, what bread and where to get it, how you spread the peanut butter, what utensils you're going to use, etc. Try not to explain the meaning of peanut butter and jelly sandwich. The end result is to have a sandwich. So make sure you're addressing your readers. Use I and you statements, but mostly you. Remember, you're going to emphasize how this will benefit your donor. Using the word you will help you to emphasize that fact so that your donors benefit from this is very clear. So base your appeal on the benefits and not needs. Now, you don't want to highlight disparity, so make sure to speak less about your needs and more about the benefit to not only your donors, but also to your intended audience. You're ultimately doing this work for someone or a group of people, so talk about the benefit to them as well. Now, give them a reason to send money now. They need to know that the funds are needed now and not in 6 months. Let them know that you need money by such and such date in order to make this particular initiative successful. And be sure to be specific about what you're asking for. Anyone can give support just by patting you on the back or saying, I support you. But you want to be specific about requesting a donation so that your donors are aware of your intentions. And make it clear your goal is not just to raise funds. Ultimately, you're trying to make art that will serve a greater audience. Raising funds is just a means to an end that will help you achieve your goals. And when you're writing letters, feel free to use online resources to search for examples of amazing appeal letters. If you are fiscally sponsored, we do have templates on your My Fiscal Sponsorship page under the Programs and Guidelines tab, so take a look at those as well. Now, e-blasts are another great way to get the word out. MailChimp is a great e-blast service that connects to Fractured Atlas's platform of Artfully. And Artfully can help you engaging with your donors and keeping track of your correspondence, which we'll get into in a little bit. Now, remember, if you are fiscally sponsored by Fractured Atlas, you need to have these fundraising materials be approved before you send them along to your donors. So make sure that you're sending those to us before you're sending them out. As you prepare, be sure to keep accurate and up-to-date front-facing content such as websites, donor landing pages, and social media sites. This way, when donors look into your work, you can be sure they are getting the most up-to-date and accurate information. Now, social media is also another way to engage new and potential donors with your work. Studies have shown that 96% of millennials have joined a social network, and that's the fastest growing demographic in social media is people over 50. Considering the number of people using social media and the ease with which people can share information using social media, it can be one of the most important tools you use in your fundraising. Now, social media can be especially helpful when running a crowdfunding campaign, and it's the best way to make your campaign go viral. If you have a social media presence, your followers can help out by spreading the word about your work. So develop a consistent posting calendar and make sure to link to your donor landing page at Fractured Atlas as well. Remember, all approved by Fractured Atlas, of course. Which brings us to our next popular form of individual giving, crowdfunding. Now, there are many platforms available to hold a crowdfunding campaign on your own to fundraise. If you're looking to give your donors a tax deduction with your gift, there's only one platform that can do this. Luckily, Fractured Atlas has its own platform, and it's called Fundraising by Fractured Atlas. So any donations through our crowdfunding campaigns can be tax deductible to the extent permitted by law with fiscally sponsored projects. So crowdfunding campaigns are about crowdsourcing your art, getting the word out to as many people as possible to expand your reach and excite and motivate current and new donors about your work. Now, crowdfunding is best when you're fundraising for a specific activity or portion of your work. For example, a production or a gallery exhibit, a new album, or a performance run. Now, you can set a goal, include images and videos, as well as rewards for your donors. Now, many people think there are random donors scouring the internet looking for a campaign to donate to. Unfortunately, this is not the case. 99% of the time, donors are close friends, family, and acquaintances. But the work gets shared so often that there are so many people getting the word out that excites new donors to get involved. Now, crowdfunding is just one of those ways to get the word out about your work. The best way to gain new donors and reach new followers is networking. So networking, ask your friends and family and acquaintances to share your work, possibly put you in touch with someone they know who might be interested in getting involved. Networking is big. Show up to other functions and get involved in circles you may not have been in before. Make sure you get business cards, ones with clear contact information. The key is getting people you don't know that your friends and family may know or fellow artists know to get interested in your work. Because I know we're not all millionaires and sometimes our friends aren't either, but 6 degrees of separation, you may get in touch with someone who has the cash to spare. So use their preferred method of correspondence. If your donor doesn't respond to emails, try social media, phone calls, or even mailed letters. Then the reverse. If they don't return your phone calls, try emailing them. Catering your asks helps your donors see how integral they are to your journey. Providing the courtesy to meet them on their plane will go a long way. So how else can you make sure you're getting the most out of your solicitations? Well, there's 3 major ways to maximize your donations for your project. First is monthly gifts. They're important for any fundraising campaign because they allow your donors to contribute less at one time, which allows for them to give more over time. Let's look at a typical donor profile comparing monthly donations versus one-time donations. So we make it super easy for you right here. Once they click donate now, they have the option to give one time or to give monthly, and their credit cards will be charged automatically on the same date every month. Now, Fracture.us offers an entire webinar about strategies for monthly giving, which I do encourage you to join. So the next is non-cash donations. So donations don't only need to be made in cash. You can often eliminate your budget items by asking for a non-cash or in-kind gift. This is especially important if your donor cannot offer funds but has equipment or other materials to contribute. Remember, only tangible items are considered tax deductible according to the IRS. Fractured Atlas can process donations of tangible items and offer you tax receipts for those donations. So, for example, if someone is donating books to your work, they can donate those books. But if someone is offering their service of, let's say, working the door at free costs, that's something we wouldn't be able to accept. So the next is matching gifts. Many companies match an employee's donation to a charity. Make sure your donors are aware that Fracture Atlas can accept these matching donations. The match will usually be at least a 1-to-1 match, matching the same amount, but sometimes the company will even match the donation 2-to-1 or more. So have your donor check in with their HR or matching gift departments to see what protocol is necessary to submit for a matching gift. So generally, the process will start with your donor making a contribution. From there, they will need to report the donation to their employer. The employer will then check with Fractured Atlas and will confirm that we've received the donation. Then, a few months later, we will receive a check from the employer matching the original contribution. So it's pretty simple. So now that we have the content, the materials, and the strategies, how do we engage our donors? Because making a donor base is easier said than done, of course. In this next section, we'll discuss positioning your project in a way that brings in interested followers and cultivates relationships. So what do donors want? They might care about the audience you're serving and want to help you bring your service to that audience. Perhaps they want to help in some way, but they can't give time, so they give money instead. Some might want status, and some just might want the tax deduction. Now, I know it sounds crazy, but the most important thing to remember when you're soliciting donations, that it's not about begging for money. It's about gaining resources for art. Donors want to be a part of your journey. They want to have a sense of connection with themselves as part of the work. Even if their involvement is a monetary one, your solicitation is an invitation of sorts for them to be a part of your work. They want to see the value of your work and the impact, because in return, that means that they themselves are providing that value and impact as well. So how do we engage our donors in a way that excites them about becoming a part of our work? Let them in on the work. Let your donors know exactly where their funds are going. Focus on their interests specifically. If a donor advocates for paying for artists, make sure you let them know how you prioritize this in your work. Use the information and materials you have prepared to pinpoint where the donor fits in within your work. Now, offer rewards in appreciation for their donation. Rewards can be shout-outs on social media, their name listed on your website, credit within the work such as in programs and film credits, or goods such as tickets to performances, admission to classes, pieces of artwork, and more. Now, Fractured Atlas provides this with the easy-to-use tool of giving levels on a donor landing page with us. This allows for you to indicate different donation amounts and attribute various rewards for each level. It also ensures Fractured Atlas can give their proper tax receipts to donors with the accurate tax-deductible amount included. Now, you can add this through your My Fiscal Sponsorship page if you're already fiscally sponsored when logged into Fractured Atlas. You would log in and you would click Donations and you would go to Giving Levels. Just be sure if you are giving rewards that you list the value of whatever you're giving in the non-gift amount so that we can give the proper tax receipt. Another part is to guide your donors through the process. It's important to be very clear about what you want from your donors and how they can give that to you. So you should give them explicit instructions for how to donate. Make sure your instructions are easy to understand and clearly define each step your donors need to take to make the donation you've requested. You'll also want to clarify for your donors that they'll contribute on Fractured Atlas's website and that their credit card statement and tax receipt will show Fractured Atlas as the donation recipient. When they go onto your donor landing page, they'll see all the information about your project and a button right there to donate. So they need to know exactly that they will be giving to Fractured Atlas for the purposes of your work. Write a personalized thank you to each donor immediately upon receiving the gift. It'll add that personal touch that shows your donors how important they are to you, which brings us to our next section. In this section, we'll discuss the way to keep your donors engaged, gather data, and what your donors love to see and how they engage, celebrating your donors and involving them directly in the work and journey, and the services and platforms that make this process smooth and efficient. So, what makes donors keep coming back? Keep in constant contact. Make good on your promises and rewards. Even if you don't reach your goals, this shows your donor how dedicated you are and let them know sometimes how rough the road can be, but that you are resilient. Keep them up to date on your activities. Invite them to any events you might have coming up or shows, and keep them in the know as to where the funds actually went to. Following up after an event to say, thank you for your donation. It helped our artists do X, Y, and Z. It really helps your donor become a part of the work and along for the ride. So survey your donors. Ask them what they think about the communications you send. I'd suggest starting with your friends and family, asking both those who have donated and those who haven't what they think about your solicitation. What did they like? What didn't they like? What do you think that you could have done differently? As you continue to expand your donor base, you should continue to survey your most faithful donors in order to continue refining the way you interact with them. Now, show your appreciation even when they're not giving you funds. Send holiday greetings, have small or low-cost events to bring them together, and meet up at a bar or invitation to an open rehearsal. This shows your donor how excited you are about the work and gets them even more excited about it too. Make sure, if they're digitally inclined, that they're following you on all social media. Make sure that you're sending newsletters. It's the easiest way to keep in touch with your donors over long periods of time. And this can be done with MailChimp or eBlasts or even sending letters. So in this next section, we'll talk about the wealth of services that Fractured Atlas provides that can position your project for maintaining individual donors and for continued success. So as we mentioned before, Fractured Atlas's service of Artfully is a great way to keep track of your donors and works with fiscally sponsored projects. So once you're fiscally sponsored, you can go to Artfully, just as it's spelled above, artful.ly, sign up your project as an organization. Now there's no extra cost to using Artfully, and once you're connected, you can email us to set up a sponsored project kit to accept donations through Artfully. And it also links your donor records to best organize and manage your donor correspondence, as well as patron records for your events. It's a great way to start understanding your audience, managing your segments, and organizing communications. Now, the service syncs with fiscally sponsored projects, creating an individualized record for each donor. You can sell tickets to shows and events, take donations. The system then saves a record when patrons have attended events and when they have donated to your work. This service can also link with MailChimp, allowing you to manage correspondence and keep up-to-date records for your supporters. So you can track your donors and other fans all in the same place. Now, this is also a great service for nonprofit 501c3 organizations as well. This means if your project becomes a 501c3, you can continue using Artfully to receive donations. Because all records sync from your sponsored project, if you close your sponsorship with us, you can still access your donor records through Artfully. It's a great platform for sponsored projects and all arts organizations as well. So our next program is Space Finder. It's an online marketplace that matches renters with venues that meet their unique needs. For artists, this process of finding workspace can be frustrating and inefficient. Meanwhile, venues have limited resources to spend finding new renters. Earned revenue is critical for creative venues, yet many rental spaces are tragically underutilized. So through the Space Finder program, Fractured Atlas is increasing visibility of rental options, helping artists find the space they need, and helping venues promote and rent their spaces. Now, there's over 5,000 spaces listed and 554,000 searches for space every year. There are also about 800,000 annual rental referrals to participating creative venues. So definitely take a look at Space Finder. It's one of my favorite services with Fractured Atlas. So thanks to the combined purchasing powers of Fractured Atlas community, our members have access to high quality coverage for much lower rates than would otherwise be possible. More importantly, with one foot in the arts and another in the world of insurance, we've worked with some of the world's leading insurance companies to design a number of proprietary insurance programs that are specifically tailored to meet your specific needs. We've even made the process as quick and painless as possible. So you can use our website for insurance to actually get a quote online and then buy said quote if you are interested. Once you're ready to buy, you would need to become a member of Fractured Atlas to do so. So getting a visa to work as an artist in the United States is a time-consuming and frustrating process. Fractured Atlas is considered a peer group and offers to review your O&P visa applications and provide a letter of consultation / no objection for the application. Whether submitting as an immigrant attorney or an employer petitioner or as a visiting artist group, we can provide this service for a fee of $200. Now, we can help make this process quick, easy, inexpensive, and efficient. Relevant visa application documents can be submitted online through our website. Please note, you do need to be a member at the free community level in order to take advantage of this service. Again, this is for international artists trying to come into the United States. So if you are working with an international artist or you are international yourself and need a letter of no objection for that, definitely reach out to us for that. So now in this next session, we'll take time for some questions. Again, feel free to type your question in the chat box or the Q&A box, and I'll answer any questions you might have. Doesn't look like we have any questions popping up yet. We'll wait a little bit. You might be typing. All right. Doesn't look like we have any questions coming in. That makes me feel good. Guess I covered everything as well as it needed to be covered. So if you have any specific questions about anything that maybe you aren't able to type in a chat box or that you feel might come up later is really specific to your work, you can email us at support@fracturedatlas.org or give us a call at 888-692-7878. So feel free to give us a call or send us an email and we'll help you out. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining. And here's a list of the other webinars that we actually offer with Fractured Atlas. So definitely take a look. You can also see what webinars we have coming up when you go to fracturedatlas.org. If you click about programs and services and about fiscal sponsorship, on the right-hand side, you'll see a list of the webinars we have coming up, and you can click there and register on the site. So again, thank you everyone for coming, and we'll see you next time. And yes, one of our staff members, Colleen, who attended, is letting everyone know May 15th, there will be VRI and captioning included as well. So take a look at that webinar coming up. All right. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night.